The invitation arrived on a rainy Thursday, tucked inside a simple white envelope with my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in nearly 3 years. My fingers trembled before I even opened it because I already knew who it was from. It was Emily, my late brother Daniel's widow. Since the day we buried him, we had drifted into separate worlds, connected only by memories too painful to revisit. Inside the envelope was a birthday invitation with one handwritten sentence beneath it, "Please come. There's something I've carried in my heart for years, and I can't keep it hidden anymore." In that moment, I had no idea that accepting her invitation would uncover a truth powerful enough to rewrite everything I believed about my brother, my family, and myself. Before we continue, if stories about love, family, forgiveness, and second chances touch your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness for more emotional stories that remind us that kindness can change lives forever. For weeks I considered throwing the invitation away. Daniel had been my best friend long before he was my brother. We grew up sharing a tiny bedroom, riding old bicycles through our neighborhood, and dreaming about the lives we would someday build. He was the fearless one who always believed tomorrow would be better than today. I was quieter, more cautious, always standing just behind him. When he married Emily, I welcomed her into our family because she brought out the gentlest parts of him. They laughed constantly, planned adventures, and talked about children they hoped to have one day. Their happiness seemed untouchable until the accident that took Daniel's life on a lonely highway just 6 months after their 3rd wedding anniversary. His death shattered everyone differently. Our parents buried themselves in grief. Emily disappeared into silence. I threw myself into work because staying busy hurt less than remembering. Slowly, birthdays, holidays, and family traditions faded away. We stopped calling one another because every conversation seemed to end with tears we couldn't explain. 3 years passed that way, each one colder than the last. On the evening of her birthday, I almost turned my car around twice. The gathering was small, held at the little house Daniel had bought with Emily shortly after their wedding. Walking up the familiar path felt like stepping into another lifetime. The flowers Daniel once planted were blooming brighter than ever, as if time had refused to erase his touch from the garden. Inside, only a handful of close friends were there. The laughter was gentle, almost cautious, as though everyone understood that this house carried both joy and sorrow within its walls. Emily greeted me with a warm smile that looked different from the one I remembered. It still carried sadness, but there was strength behind it now. She thanked me quietly for coming, and throughout the evening we spoke only about ordinary things. We remembered Daniel's terrible cooking experiments, the camping trip where he accidentally set his own tent on fire, and the way he never met a stranger. For the first time since his funeral, remembering him didn't feel like reopening a wound. It felt like sitting beside an old friend. As the guests slowly left, Emily asked if I could stay a little longer. My heart began racing because I remembered the sentence in her invitation. She led me into Daniel's old study, a room she had preserved almost exactly as he had left it. His books still lined the shelves. His favorite coffee mug rested beside a stack of notebooks. On the desk sat a small wooden box tied with a faded blue ribbon. Emily placed the box in front of me and took a long breath before speaking. She admitted that shortly before Daniel died, they had learned something that changed their lives forever. After years of trying, she had finally become pregnant. They had decided to keep it a secret until after the first doctor's appointment because they wanted to surprise the entire family. But before that day arrived, Daniel never made it home. I could barely breathe as tears blurred my vision. I had spent years believing my brother died without knowing he would become a father. Instead, he had carried that happiness in his heart during his final days. Emily gently opened the wooden box. Inside were tiny baby shoes, ultrasound photographs, and dozens of letters written in Daniel's unmistakable handwriting. My brother had written one letter for every birthday his future child might celebrate, beginning with the first and continuing all the way to adulthood. Each letter was filled with advice, encouragement, and unconditional love. Daniel somehow wanted to make sure that even if life surprised him, his child would always know who their father was. Then Emily revealed the confession that had haunted her for years. Just weeks after Daniel's funeral, she lost the baby. The grief was so overwhelming that she couldn't bear telling anyone. She believed she had failed Daniel, failed the family, and failed herself. Every time she tried to speak about it, the words disappeared behind unbearable guilt. So she hid the letters, locked away the memories, and convinced herself that carrying the pain alone was the only way to protect everyone else. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the old clock Daniel had inherited from our grandfather. Suddenly the distance between us over the past 3 years made heartbreaking sense. We had both been drowning, but each of us believed we had to swim alone. I reached for one of Daniel's letters and carefully unfolded it. Even though it wasn't written for me, every sentence sounded exactly like him. He wrote about courage, kindness, forgiveness, and never allowing grief to steal the ability to love. Reading his words felt like hearing his voice echo through the room once again. I realized that although death had ended his life, it had never erased the goodness he planted in everyone fortunate enough to know him. That night Emily and I talked until sunrise. We shared stories we had been too afraid to tell. We cried without embarrassment. We laughed through our tears as we remembered Daniel's endless optimism. For the first time, grief no longer felt like a wall separating us. Instead, it became a bridge connecting two people who loved the same remarkable man. In the months that followed, something beautiful began to happen. Emily stopped hiding from the world. She started volunteering at a children's reading center because Daniel had always believed every child deserved someone who believed in them. I began visiting our parents every Sunday again instead of making excuses. Together we created a small scholarship in Daniel's name for local students who had lost a parent, hoping his compassion would continue touching lives he would never meet. One spring afternoon, we planted a young oak tree beside Daniel's favorite hiking trail. As the wind rustled through its tiny leaves, I realized that healing doesn't happen because we forget. It happens because we finally find the courage to remember without letting the memories destroy us. Daniel's legacy was never the tragedy of his death. It was the extraordinary love he left behind, quietly growing inside the people who carried him in their hearts. If this story has touched you in any way, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may need hope today, subscribe to Ripple of Kindness, and let us know in the comments how a loved one's memory continues to inspire your life. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that may need comfort the most. Special request: before this story ends, please leave a comment with the words, "Love never truly leaves," if you believe the people we lose continue to shape our lives through the kindness they taught us. As I drove home that morning after Emily's birthday, the sun slowly broke through the clouds that had covered the sky for days. It reminded me that even the longest storms eventually surrender to the light. I understood then that Emily's confession hadn't simply revealed a heartbreaking secret. It had given both of us permission to stop surviving and start living again. Daniel's dreams had not vanished with him. They continued every time we chose compassion instead of bitterness, hope instead of despair, and love instead of fear. Some birthdays celebrate another year of life. That birthday celebrated something even greater. It celebrated forgiveness, healing, and the quiet miracle that second chances sometimes arrive disguised as the hardest truth we've ever had to hear. And perhaps that is life's greatest gift, that even after unimaginable loss, the human heart still finds a way to bloom again, carrying those we love not behind us, but gently beside us, with every hopeful step toward tomorrow.